Hello, my name is Kay. Welcome to my channel. I review art and craft books, and today I'm going to review a book by Sushma Hedge called Wildflower Watercolor. Shushma is a self-taught illustrator and instructor. She teaches watercolor, floral and landscape classes on Skillshare and has an audience of over 10,000 students. So let's take a look inside now at this very pretty book. Shushma's book is published by Page Street Publishing Company. It's a softback book with 168 pages and it's in a square format, just under 8 inches square. Here we have the contents page. At the start of the book we have the introduction, the supplies list, basic techniques, observing and interpreting what we see in nature, and brushstrokes. We then come on to the project section of the book. The first group of projects are wild herbs, and there are 14 of those, which then takes us to wildflowers, and there are 15 of those projects, and finally a composition project section where there are 2, composing a floral bouquet, wild poppies and cornflowers. At the end of the book, Shushma has written a note of thanks. There's a bit about Shushma and the index. In the introduction, Shushma explains what you can expect from her step-by-step workbook. Shushma also would love to see what you create from her book, and you can share your paintings with her on Instagram using the hashtag Wildflower Watercolor. In the supplies chapter, Shushma starts by discussing watercolor paper, the texture, material, thickness and form. Shushma lists the different watercolour paints that she likes to use and also the different brands, and illustrated the different size of brushes that she prefers and the marks they make. Here Shushma lists different items you're likely to need, such as a palette, water and water container, cloth or paper towels and watercolour pencils. She then moves on to basic techniques, talking about tones of colour and water to paint ratio. The example of pink flowers on the left-hand page illustrates how watercolour paint is darker when it's wet and then it dries much lighter. There's a page on basic colour mixing, and Shushma reminds us when watercolours are used directly from the tube or pan, they are often too bright and intense and don't look natural. Painting white flowers can be very tricky with watercolour, and Shushma gives us some excellent tips on how to give the effect of white. A lot of people struggle with mixing green and they find it daunting. Here Shushma provides 2 excellent tips on how to achieve some natural looking green colours, and also illustrates the effect of wet on wet technique and wet on dry. Sometimes you might want to remove colour from a painting after it's been applied, and this technique is called lifting, and Shushma has demonstrated this in 3 easy to follow steps. We now come to the chapter observing and interpreting what we see in nature, and Shushma reminds us that before we dive into the steps of painting flowers, we need to consider the phases of a flower, right from a bud to a flower in full bloom. This can clearly be seen in the illustration of ragwort. We then need to ask ourselves, what are the distinctive features of the plant? If we take daffodils, they're very distinctive with their trumpet in the middle of the petals. And then the leaves of the lungwort have white spots on them, while the flowers of mallow have prominent deep pink or purple veins. So we need to learn to look closely and see shapes. We also need to be mindful of the way the light falls on a flower, because this will affect the colour, and take into consideration movement. For example, a wild strawberry, the fruits are drooping at different angles, showing that they are heavy for the stems, and the leaves face off in different directions. Here are some exercises for you to try to help you paint different leaf shapes. For example, a simple pointed leaf, a wavy leaf, round elongated leaf, small oval leaves, thick ruffled leaf, thin ruffled leaf, a circular leaf and a dandelion leaf. Shushma has really covered painting leaves in great detail for you. This brings us on to painting stems, and then painting petals and flowers. such as a round petal flower, a flower with dots and dashes, small flower clusters, and bell-shaped flowers. Here we have triangular petal shapes. This brings us to the main part of the book, which is the project section. The first set of projects is wild herbs, and the second is wildflowers. There are 14 wild herb projects and 15 wildflower projects, and then finally 2 complete compositions composing a floral bouquet and then wild poppies and cornflowers. Each project contains very detailed step-by-step instructions. It starts off with naming the herb or the flower, with a little description about them. Shushma lists the colours she's used and also the size of brushes that she's used. We have a photograph of the final painting, which is absolutely beautiful. Just look at this example of lavender that Shushma's painted. And very detailed step-by-step instructions. I will now continue to show you all the wonderful projects in Shushma's lovely workbook. I'll set this to some lovely music for you, so you don't have to listen to me repeating myself over and over again, and I'll meet you at the end and provide a summary. This brings us to the end of Shushma's beautiful book. I'm really impressed by it actually. The quality of the photographs, the quality of the paper, the book opens flat, which is one of my bugbears, and I'm really looking forward to trying some of the projects, in particular the bush vetch and also the cowslip. I used to live in a 300-year-old cottage, and in the middle of the lawn there was this cowslip that used to pop up every year, and I would religiously mow round it because I thought it was so pretty. This brings us to the last few pages. Here Shushma has a note of thanks to everyone who's helped her produce this wonderful book, and there's a photograph of her art studio. I mean, look at that, it's just amazing. I'm quite envious. Imagine painting in there every day. Look at how lucky Shushma is. And on this page there's a bit about Shushma herself and how you can find out more about her Skillshare classes and her work on her website. So in the description below I've put links to where you can buy a copy of this beautiful book. I highly recommend it. I'm sure you won't be disappointed, and it will give you many hours of pleasure. Also in the description you'll find a little bit about Sushma Hedge as an author, and there's a link to her website, her online teaching workshops, and also to her Skillshare courses. I've also linked to Shushma's Facebook page and Instagram account, and whilst Shushma doesn't have her own YouTube channel, I did come across several YouTube videos where Shushma is being interviewed or is demonstrating. And Diane Anton from Diane Anton Studio on YouTube has an excellent video where she paints wild roses from one of the tutorials in Shushma's beautiful book. I hope you found my review helpful. If you did, please give this video a like. It helps YouTube promote my channel to other people who are interested in art books. I try and post a new art book review every single week, so if you'd like to see more reviews from me, please subscribe to my channel. I'd really appreciate it. And if you found this review helpful, please leave me a comment below. I do reply to all comments. And if there's an art book that you'd like to see, let me know and I will do my best to review it for you. So thank you for watching, and until next time, happy painting.